Bonjour, je suis Mathieu Carbas, journaliste à l'actualité. Aujourd'hui, à Movin'On, nous recevons Carla Bailo, qui est présidente et CEO du Centre pour la recherche automobile. So, bonjour Carla, and welcome to
Bonjour.
Montreal.
Thank you.
You're president and CEO of at Center for Automotive Research.
Yes.
What it is exactly, and what are your functions, your role?
The Center for Automotive Research is an automotive nonprofit think tank, 501c3. So we do independent, unbiased research for the sustainability of the automotive industry. So we're providing automobile companies, tier one suppliers, and others with the data and the information they need to create their future strategies.
All right. The U.S. Automotive industry is in the midst of a critical period. Big change are coming. How the industry is getting prepared?
Yeah.
I mean, how like.
Well, I would say
React.
the global automotive industry is, it's the biggest change and disruption that we've had in the last 100 years,
Okay.
so to speak. Every element and aspect is changing. Everything from electrification to connected autonomous to the disruptors entering the marketplace today, the new companies, the new modes of transit, the new types of vehicles.
Okay.
Everything is changing. Mobility as a service, and demographically, the young people, they don't want to get licenses anymore. They don't want to own a car. So all of this is creating kind of the perfect storm that you have to change or basically die.
And like the one of those change is the end of oil. I mean, the end of the petrol as we know it. Is the industry ready for that, or?
The industry and I would say the infrastructure still has to be created. There are three reasons why people aren't buying electric vehicles today. One is the cost. Second is the infrastructure, knowing that they can charge wherever they need to be. And third is fundamentally the range. Does it fit into their daily lives? And right now, the cost per kilowatt hour is about $140 per kilowatt hour. We believe it needs to get down in the 80-some dollars per kilowatt hour for really the hockey stick,
Okay.
or the people to begin purchasing EVs
Regular
more.
eyes.
But on a global level, where there are incentives put in place, like China, Norway, other countries, we have seen a huge uptake, and therefore the automakers all have to be prepared for electrification throughout their model line.
One of the alternative also that we hear here, actually, it's like we need less car in our streets, but less cars means less profits for the automotive industry. What is the alternative for the industry, actually?
Well, this is why you see the industry now partnering with so many different players, the new mobility as a service providers, new ways to monetize data. The statistic that's always quoted is there's $2.1 trillion in mobility data that's available.
Okay.
So if you think about the amount of profit that an automaker gets on a car and you compare that to a data provider, it's night and day. So to move then your company into mobility as a service is the way to go. And this is what the customers are demanding. It's not going to be ownership in the future. It's going to be usership in the future.
Okay.
The customer only wants to pay for what they're using. So then the companies have to quickly morph themselves from a company that designs, builds, sells cars to dealers to a company that can manage a fleet of vehicles and manage that holistic customer experience. Automotive companies aren't necessarily good at that. That's why you're seeing them partner with others that have a handle on user experience and human-machine interface.
All right. And like overall, do you have some like concrete example of what industry does to to change? I mean, you talk about like partnership, but are there others?
Oh, beyond partnerships, there's a lot that companies are doing internally, and we're seeing it happen with many of the large automakers as well as with a lot of the tier ones. Fundamentally, they're splitting the organization, and they're taking a group that is focused strictly on electrification and mobility services.
Okay.
And this group is often moved away from, I would call it the machine of the business, where they can have creativity, they can have good collaboration and teamwork, and work more like a startup with that kind of mentality. So many of the large automotives have done it. Several of the tier ones, Continental, Delphi, have already split the companies so they can have this different way of working. Now, what's going to be interesting is in the future, these groups have to cohabitate again. And how they merge this new way with the old way is really going to be interesting from an organizational standpoint.
Do you think the industry is ready to merge and to
Not at all.
face this reality?
Not at all. Quite frankly, the companies, a lot of the people want to work in that cool area, and but then it's this part, that old part, that is driving the profits to allow this kind of innovation to happen. And these people say, we don't know what these guys are doing over here. They're doing some crazy stuff. We're the ones making all the money. So it's going to require the right kind of leadership to be able to, meld those pieces back together.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's going to change the whole way the companies operate. This old company is very risk averse and change, resistant. This one is not. It's got to change.
It will.
I'm hoping. Well, they either change or again they won't be around.
Yeah. Also, one thing interesting is the autonomous car, because vehicles, because we are talking a lot about those, but we are not seeing them in the streets for the moment. And are there still some security concern, or why it's that long to have them like generalized?
Yeah, it's really quite interesting. We've been studying, or we follow the announcements made by all the automotives and all the startups when they said they were going to have autonomous vehicles. And we started this timeline, and in 2017 there were 3 or 4 companies that said they would have autonomous vehicles. Yeah. They did their pilots, and they found, it's not so simple. There's technical issues with sensors and in creating the artificial intelligence. There's public policy issues. There's legal issues. There's insurance issues. And it is a holistic system. So all of those issues have to be ironed out. So now most of them are, pushing off to 2019, 2020, 2022. And it could even be longer, quite frankly, before we get all of these issues worked out. And the idea that an autonomous vehicle can coexist with a human-driven vehicle is a huge challenge from artificial intelligence. You've got the brain here, and you've got a computer brain here. This human brain, we don't know what it's going to do. This one, we have a good idea because we programmed it.
Yeah.
But this one can do anything. So to try to program this brain to interpret what that one's doing is going to take some time.
Yeah, even if it's like one person or...
Yeah, and the human brain, we only know 12% of how it works. So, you're trying to program something that you don't even know how it works. And the only way to do that is with a lot of testing. And as the companies have gotten out and started doing these pilots, they've realized they don't know what they didn't know and are learning.
You were talking about sensors. Here in Quebec, we have a lot of snow in the winter, and the winter can last like 6 to 8 months.
Right.
So are the autonomous vehicles ready to face those conditions, or are they still like learning how to?
They're still learning. Not at all. In fact, rain even messes them up sometimes because it will cloud the sensors. And it's funny you should mention that. I've driven many times through Quebec, and my car has the adaptive cruise control. As soon as I would hit a snowstorm, within 1 mile, cruise control would stop. The car was blind. I couldn't see anymore, so probably I shouldn't have had the cruise on anyway in those conditions. But we're not sure yet. There's a lot of things being developed, though. There's sensors that have self-clearing, like wipers. Others that put heat and hot air to keep them clean. A number of things are happening to enable that. In addition, the mapping of the roads using satellite data helps a lot, so that you
Yeah.
don't have to rely so much on the visuality of
Yeah,
the
but it's
vehicle.
more on the
But it's
GPS.
again, it's going to take time. I think we saw with Tesla, they have a pretty good system. It's not nearly to the autonomous level, but the car interpreted the bed of the semi truck to be a cloud, and that was
Okay.
part of the problem why it didn't register to stop the car. So again, we have a lot to learn and many scenarios to test.
Okay, a lot of things to learn and to try.
Absolutely.
Maybe?
And that's why you're seeing a lot of these shuttle deployments happening in the nice climates.
Okay,
You
yeah,
know,
like
nice climates that
California.
are kind also for electrification. Here in Quebec, you bring an electric vehicle, the range automatically is reduced 20 to 30% because of the severity of the weather.
Yeah, okay. Another question that I thought was interesting to ask you. So, one hand, you're president and CEO of a research center, but on the other hand, you're director of, you are independent director of SM Energy Company, which is a company focused on exploration, extraction of oil and gas. So, how to make sure that you can be truly independent as a researcher, looking at the other end. Actually, how can you deal with that?
Yeah, even though you think it might be an absolute polar opposite, because oil and gas, that's kind of the
That's my
old,
journalist.
dirty kind of thing, and then the Center for Automotive Research is looking really to the future. One of the reasons I was brought into this independent director role for the oil and gas industry is they see the headwinds. They see the need to become more sustainable. They really want to understand what's happening with electrification, what's happening with electrification of trucks, especially too, the cargo hauling trucks. And they wanted somebody to help them pave that path to sustainability as a company, as a brand. So it was really brought in as, and it's quite complementary. And I'll tell you, it's been a huge learning experience to understand what really happens in the oil and gas industry.
So-
But we don't foresee, electrification taking great hold till probably the 30s or 40s. So what you are seeing with a lot of oil and gas companies right now is they're beginning to invest actually in charging infrastructure, especially the large oil and gas companies are, because they see the end of life for that, but they still want to be profitable. So in the future,
The first step.
in the future, a petrol station won't just have diesel and gasoline, but it will have electrification for charging stations. It will have probably hydrogen, everything. So it will become more of a propulsion center versus a gasoline station.
All right. You were also involved at Ohio State University as a assistant vice president for mobility research and business development. So at the Ohio State University, you helped coordinate a program to develop new transportation offerings in the region.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this program?
That it was probably one of the best times I've had in my life, because it was a brand new position in the university. I was asked to come in, and it's the third largest university in the U.S.
Okay.
Almost 60,000 students. Wow. So I was asked to look at what all the different colleges were doing related to mobility, everything from exoskeletal up through drones, and come up with one or two big projects we could work on collectively as a university and in conjunction with our industry and government leaders in the area. So the first thing I tried to understand was what were the unmet mobility needs in the area, on campus as well as within the city of Columbus.
How big is Columbus?
Columbus, in the whole metropolitan area, it's about 1.2 million.
Okay.
It's expected to double that growth by 2030, maybe even sooner now that they won the
So
Smart City
very
Challenge.
dynamic city.
And the infrastructure is not going to be changed or enlarged. So how to then be able to put more, have more movement without more lanes and more infrastructure. Yeah. This was the challenge. We also had the great opportunity of having a proving ground specific to do research with the university. So I started two things there. One was I created the Ohio Smart Mobility Initiative, which has now turned into Drive Ohio, under the governor's control. And that was to link this proving ground to the university by a smart highway of 35 miles. So you could do contained testing both at the university and at the proving ground, and then go out on the public road and, you know, trial that out.
And try like
Right, and
real-
students could be involved, professors could be involved. It'd be a great opportunity for companies to come work with the university, great for our students. That has also morphed now into not just Columbus, but a few of the other cities along that 35-mile freeway. And they've gotten involved with putting in smart traffic lights and really trying to improve safety in the corridor. The whole emphasis was on safety. Then the DOT announced the Smart City Challenge, and we took that idea and expanded it to especially an underserved population in Columbus. And this particular area was a food desert, mobility desert, 4 times the national average of infant mortality, a lot of unemployment, a lot of it due to the inability to get to doctors or get fresh food and things like this. Putting in bus rapid transit, putting in first mile, last mile solutions, many, many things, you know, for this community. Number of other initiatives too, and Columbus is, you know, just growing like crazy as a result with mobility options.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're
Thank
very
you.
welcome. Pleasure.
Ouais. Merci à vous, merci de nous avoir suivis et on vous donne rendez-vous dès demain pour un prochain Facebook Live en direct du sommet sur la mobilité durable Movin'On. Bonsoir.